we've been blessed with a potpourri of hoops events to discuss next on Beyond the Locker Room. So this weekend has been crazy. It always is this time of year, especially for hoops. I'm going to get into a bunch of topics. We're going to have some fun today. I wasn't really sure. There's so many topics. I couldn't focus on just one of them. So I put them in a kind of a basket. In this case, the championship cap, 2019 champs. See your wraps right here. And I have 4 topics we're going to discuss today. I'm going to pick them out of the hat, and we'll see what comes out of it. And I'm just going to kind of just roll with it from there. So let's go in here. Let's close the old eyes and see what I get first. Let's see what this one is first. Oh, appropriate. March Madness. There we go. All right, March Madness. I'm going to break it down for the men's and women's. I'm going to start first with the ladies. I'll just say this. South Carolina, South Carolina's loss looked very similar to the Michigan win, let's put it that way, against, what they had against Arizona, where sometimes you get on the court and you think you're the baddest dudes out there, and then you see some guys that are like, twice your size or twice your height. I'm exaggerating, but the size of UCLA was so apparent so early, where South Carolina was struggling. At one point, I think they went like about 7-8 straight possessions and couldn't get a basket. And you could just see it was like a snowball effect. As I said before, those 2 games were very similar to me. They mirrored each other, and I think for the very same reasons. The senior leadership and the size of UCLA, it's good to see. It was good to see Betts in that group, who were really, before USC came along with Juju and all the hype there, UCLA was pegged to be kind of a champion like 3-4 years ago when this group came together. Hawkes was part of that group, so for them to finally cash in, they were kind of forgotten about in the kind of national discourse, as everyone was, obviously South Carolina became the dominant squad for the most part this era. Some other teams had shown flashes and interest from the public standpoint, like the Irish. Obviously UConn being back to glory as well too, and of course the Caitlin phenomenon and LSU and what they did in this case the year they won the championship and the run they had for essentially the last 2 years. So a lot of teams had taken the spotlight from them, and it's like everyone kind of forgot about UCLA, and and then things kind of fell into place a little bit. And obviously the big loss on UConn, we'll get, I'm sure that'll come up in one of my topics about that situation, but overall, UCLA did their thing, and congratulated to Coach Close and the rest of the UCLA Bruins, Lady Bruins. It was great to see, kind of bringing a university or a program back to glory. It wasn't coming from the men's side this time, but the women can now put a feather in their cap now of being national champions. And on the South Carolina side, I think South Carolina didn't have as much talent on the front court as they usually have. Funny enough, ironically, I'm trying to remember her name off the top of my head, but CMB's girlfriend, she would have been useful, let's put it that way, to have that type of size up front in this run, and definitely against this team in particular. But I think overall, it's Dawn Staley's Dawn Staley. She's a Hall of Famer, and I think South Carolina overall, they were, as I said before, they're a little outgunned from a size standpoint. They have a lot of good young talent, and I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with next year for sure. So hey, put a cap on that. And as I said before, there's going to be a lot of women's basketball stuff coming in the next 3-4 weeks. It's going to be something else. Some news on that front probably in this discussion. Anyways, let's put that a bit away for the women. On the men's side, hey man, I actually wore the Michigan jersey this week. I wore it there on Basketball Rewind last week. Go blue. Blue and maize, get it done. They've knocked on the door a few times in recent years and couldn't bust through or break through. But they got it done. This team was a very deep, once again, huge team. But I would think in this case in the finals, the guard play really was the difference. And of course the defense. It was smothering on UConn. UConn had no place to go. Every shot was challenged. They were forced to shoot pretty much all perimeter stuff. And they couldn't get really anything going to the basket most of the game. They had, one thing with UConn and, especially the early years, they're very opportunistic. So when when Mullins hit that 3 late, and I think they got a turnover, like, uh-oh. Michigan fan, I think they had got it down to 4 at that point, 67-63. I'm like, oh boy. It's like, here they come again. But Michigan closed the door very quickly as they got the ball over half court and the fouling game began. As I said before, their guard play was really strong on that front. Yaxel, even with the bad knee, he still was a force defensively, picked his spots well on offense, but he moved around pretty well for a guy that was looking a little gimpy and a little limpy on Saturday night. So I'm not sure what they gave him. I'll just leave it at that, but he looked good. He's going to be a pretty good prospect coming into the draft. Raptor fans, keep an eye out on for him. I know he's a little older, but hey, man, he knows how to play the game. But overall, UConn had a great year. They'll be back at it, I'm sure, next year as usual. But congratulations to my Wolverines. I love me some Tar Heels and I love me some Wolverines. So Big Blue, cue the music. Boom, boom, boom. All right, enough of that. So let's see what's next on the list. Let's see what's on the list next. What do we have here? What can we get next? Okay. Oh, a little professional action. Who gets 6? All right. Who gets the 6th seed in the East? It's been moving, shuffling around, man, like a pair of I don't know, blue suede shoes, I guess, if you want to go old school. But whatever the case may be, it's moving around. Let's put it that way. We have, I guess, within this group, I'm removing Atlanta from this discussion. I think they are cleared the field, as they say. I think they're not going to be caught at this point. So we have Raptors, Sixers, Hornets, Magic, and I guess Heat with a bit of an outside chance of being in the mix. The Raptors still control their destiny. So for Raptor fans, you still control your destiny, but you got to win. Honestly, I think you got to win. You got to at least split the Miami games. If you lose both Miami games, it's a wrap for the Raptors. Miami needs those 2 games if they want to keep their head above water and even have a sniff at the 6th spot. I think it's going to be pretty bleak for them, but they still have a shot. I mean, they're tied with Charlotte. They're tied with Philadelphia. They're 2 games back of game and a half back of Orlando, Charlotte, and Philly. So and they're going to be knocking each other off a little bit and playing some tough teams too. So they have an outside shot in Miami, but they need these games. So these are playoff games this week. So, but who knows when this gets posted? This might already be one of these games might already be in the books, but. 2 huge games coming up on Tuesday and Thursday, at Scotiabank Arena from that perspective in this whole number 6 race. On the other side, look at the other teams. Philadelphia had a tough loss last night, obviously playing the Spurs. That was a likely loss. I still feel Philadelphia's schedule is not too bad coming up, if I remember. So they might be all right when it's all said and done. And they still have the X factor of when Embiid plays and when Embiid doesn't play. I am quite surprised that at this late stage of the season, they're not kind of truly ramping him up where they're putting him in games like every night now, which really would make me very concerned as a Philadelphia fan moving forward with Embiid, that even at this stage with 4 or 5 games left, they are still holding him out of certain games. Paul George is back, so they have that. Yeah, huge night a couple of nights ago where he dropped 39. So they're slowly getting their team together. Philly, I think, is going to be a threat to get that 6th spot, and I'll tell you in a second who I think is going to get it. Charlotte, man, you can't put the Bugs down, man. I did a pod about them about 4 or 6 weeks ago when they were starting to brew, and now folks are kind of realizing, like, oh, damn, this team's no joke. They could get the 6th seed. Charlotte is out here playing real ball against anybody. They are showing they're competitive against the good teams, the mediocre teams, and whooping the bad teams. That's what you like to see when a team's heading into the playoffs. They are a well-rounded team, a deep team, and of course a young team. Coach Lee I always found him a very good. I liked him as a coach from day one last year. I saw what he was trying to do with that bunch, and you can see the inklings of what we're seeing now last year. The only thing was the problem was they just needed a bit more talent, clear up some of the dead weight in this case. You know who I'm talking about from the center position. And then also making sure you can get your guys healthy. And finally, they have a full complement pretty much. And Charlotte is showing what they can do right now. They're going to be something to deal with. I'm looking forward to them. Of all the teams that are in the bunch I mentioned, the one I want to see in the playoffs, whichever seed they get, is Charlotte. I really do want to see Charlotte, play in the series. I'm not sure there'll be a 7, 8, 6 seed, but I love to see Charlotte get in because I think it's good for the league. especially see young players that are kind of could potentially be featured players moving forward, like LaMelo, Brandon Miller, of course, Con. I'd love to see it. And, Charlotte's always been one of those teams I think you grow up with a certain era. You always have a soft spot for them considering how they came into the league, with the group they had with LJ, Mourning, Del Curry, Muggsy Bogues, and that bunch. So you kind of, you always, and they always have cool jerseys. They're always, the jerseys are always in the rap videos. So, Charlotte's always been one of those teams. I think if you're from a certain era, you kind of like to see them kind of punch through and get into the mix again. So that would be cool to see. Orlando. I think Orlando's the strangest team in the East, maybe in the league. I have never seen such a mercurial team where they can lose 6 straight, and you think like this team have learned how to play basketball for the first time, and you're thinking like, what? I think in this case here, the coach got to go, perhaps. And then next thing you know, you look around and you look up at the board. It's like, oh, Magic wins 3 straight. It's like, what? It's like they're right back there again. Now Franz has come back, which is interesting because they were doing pretty well without Franz for a bit, and then they kind of like, to be fair, I don't think it was just Franz. I think everyone says, oh, Franz. They had lost Black in that run too, who has been playing fantastic and giving them that big guard and that ability to kind of be not just a big guard that can score, but also defend as well too with his size. So like it was a little more than Franz that was causing a lot of the downturn. But they got Franz back. I can't remember if Black is back yet. He might be, but if not, he's back soon, I think. So Orlando is going to be something to deal with. They had some experience from last year. They took Cleveland to 7. I think Banchero is one of those guys when the lights get brightest, watch out. So I think Orlando's a team to be wary of. And then, as I said before, I kind of assess the other one. So I'll say with the Raps, I said before, it's do or die for them. They got to get a split and then beat Brooklyn to have a chance to stay in the 6th spot. I think right now, if I'm looking at doing my odds on it, I think Philadelphia, based on their roster construction and the talent level they have, their schedule is not too bad. I think they're the team that gets the 6th spot of the teams. I mean, with Charlotte with a pretty good chance as well too, but I think Charlotte still has to play a few more big boys. The Raptors still have to play the Knicks and Miami twice. And the fact that Cleveland's doing the Raptors no favor by keeping the heat on the Knicks are forced to play everybody. So by the time they get to that game, which I think is going to be Saturday or so, is going to be on the weekend, I think Saturday, the Knicks might still have to play everybody. So if Raptor fans are thinking they're going to catch a break, it's not likely. Cleveland right now is 1 game back. So I don't know who has a tiebreaker amongst the two. But, conference-wise, I think, conference-wise, the Knicks do have the tiebreaker there if they had to go conference. I don't know what it is head-to-head, which would be the first tiebreaker. But overall, yeah, they're going to have to play out the string pretty much, New York. I think Boston will shut things down pretty soon once they get, they get another game or two underneath their belt on New York. So that's where I see things with the 6th spot right now. I like the Sixers and the Hornets to, one of those two to make the 6th seed. And unfortunately for Raptor fans, I think you drop down into the play-in, and that will be an interesting discussion to be had if that were to happen. What's next? We got 2 topics left. 2 topics left. 2 topics left. What we have here? 2 topics. Geno. Huh? Okay. Geno Auriemma. If I pronounce his name correctly, my apologies to the family. His name always gives me trouble. But Geno, I don't know what the heck. He lost his damn mind on Friday night. I get it. You had the perfect record going. You're looking to kind of like, put your name in history. I think they've done it once before, UConn, so you're looking to lick your chops. And South Carolina pretty much just grinded you to a halt, made a physical game of it, and your team couldn't handle it. Now, is there issues with the refereeing? Every coach has that beef about it. I think they only went to the line about 8, 9, 10 times. And I think South Carolina is like twice that amount. Fine. I get it. Beef with the refs. But then for you to act the fool after the game's done, the game technically wasn't even done when you shook hands with Staley, or at least I guess you could call it a shaking of the hands. And you're out there reaming her out, which from a pure optics standpoint looks horrible. Even though I think Dawn Staley in this case here ain't no one to worry about. She'll whoop anyone's ass in this case here. She's straight from Philly. She got no problem with that. So don't have no cry for me Argentina with her. She'll handle her own business. But It was a bad look overall, man. And and then for him to come to press conference and say like the rationale of why he was so upset. First thing, he's talking to Holly Rowe there, and he's just swearing like a sailor. The middle, middle of the game, like about the refereeing. Like, really? I've seen plenty of coaches in the NBA, in the WNBA, in college basketball, in men's and women's. Heck, even high school, they even have someone reporting and speaking to the coach. And I've never seen nothing like that. Nothing. And I've seen plenty of hotheads, including Bobby Knight. And even Bobby Knight, I will recall him doing that with the reporter. During that, he'll have some sharp words and choice words about me, his team. He'll have some sharp words. And believe me, I can't stand Bobby Knight. So I ain't trying to cape for Bobby Knight. I'm just saying I ain't never seen nothing like that from a coach before. Just out there, just wilding out so hot like that. Especially one that's been around the block. It's not like he's like a young, wet behind the ears coach, man. Like, come on, dude. You're a first ballot Hall of Famer. What are you talking about? If you're not in the Hall of Fame already, you might already be there. I think he might be because I think he has enough years to do so. But like, calm it down a little bit, And then for your rationale, your reason was for 2 reasons. This is him saying so in the press conference, folks. You can look it up. One of the reasons was she didn't, he said sword, in this case, Sarah's sword, in this case, her shirt, in this case, her jersey, Sarah's jersey was ripped. And I'm sitting there going like, okay, all right, that might be the case. Then you come to find out, no, she had actually ripped the jersey herself. And I'm like, what? So what are we talking about here? You're talking about, you're talking about the jerseys being ripped you're talking about jerseys being ripped. Sorry, I'm talking about Sarah Strong. My apologies, that's sort of my mind. But you're talking about Sarah Strong's jersey being ripped. She ripped the jersey. She went and replaced the jersey, and you're putting down the South Carolina players, which that was not the case. But the one that was even more egregious than that one, you can say, okay, maybe assume that the opponent ripped the jersey. That's a fair assumption. Fine. When you come and say in this case, your first thing, you're upset in this case, according to you, what had you so hot was that it was tradition to shake before the game and, she wasn't there. Okay, assuming that was the case, that is what got you so mad and you had you steaming for 2 hours like that? Really? That was it? Was her hand made of gold? Like, what you can't be serious. That cannot be it. Please with that. Miss me with that. And then come to find out, folks literally online posting, here's the video, folks, of the 2 of them shaking hands. So now we're doing conspiracy theories. Now we're just doing like, you're trying to gaslight everybody that it didn't happen when everyone had the video sitting right there. So like, it's a bad look, man. Sorry, Geno, bad look. And I'm being this harsh because I've seen this from him before, folks. Because he used to get into a Pat Summitt, God rest her soul, all the time. This is probably the reason why the now Tennessee players right now, they're in the league even, are still salty with that dude and got no time for him. I don't know what's going on with him. I'll just say it this much. I'll give the kindest interpretation of what I saw there. I'll just say hashtag sore loser. Plain and simple. Take your L's. When you beat South Carolina in the past, which I think they beat them last year, Staley went, shook your hand, moved on. Congrats to you and moved on. No wilding out, but you seem like you can't take it. You're not the biggest dog on the block anymore. It happens. You've been around long enough, you're going to get your licks in as well, too. You're going to get licks as well, too. It happens. So chill out, sit down, enjoy your career in this case here, Geno, and fall back, man. Bad look, man, all around. Bad look for you. Bad look for the game due to it. Bad look in this case of what it is, what your players see. And then by the way, he was forced to apologize. I know he wasn't probably apologize, but someone in the UConn athletic department said, like, dude, you need to apologize about this. And then when he does the apology, he does this weak ass apology where it's like, oh, I apologize to the team and to the game and to the South Carolina staff. I must have missed something. The staff is who he's reaming out there on the sideline. The staff, dude, miss me with that, man. To Geno. Anyways, end of that story. I wasted enough time with him on that nonsense. Final topic of the day. Angel baby. Angel trade. Angel baby. All right. So Angel Reese, I'm just chilling, minding my business on a Monday evening, thinking, nothing much here. And lo and behold, what comes up on Monday on my ticker? What? Angel Reese got traded? What snap? I had to look into this. My goodness. Well, I think I've discussed the Angel Reese situation before on Basketball Rewind. I might have done it here on Beyond the Locker Room perhaps as well too. Late in the season about the nonsense there, you go check it out there, some of that stuff. I'll say this, man. Hey, the Chicago Sky, man. Oh my gosh. I never see a franchise. And I mean, I would say so. There's been some doozies over the years. The Clippers for most of their existence. You could argue the Maple Leafs are kind of like in this boat as well too. Who else is another one? Who else is another one I'm thinking of for years? The Saints used to be like that. They're not quite like that, but they used to be like that for years as well too. Ironically, the Falcons might be like that in football, where it's like doesn't matter what they do, they will find ways to mess it up. Chicago Sky, you end up and you traded up together. By the way, you traded up together in that draft. You end up getting Chicago in this case since the championship. And by the way, when a hometown girl wanted to play for you, and then it went sour with her, by the way, which is like basketball royalty, Candace Parker. All right, so keep that in mind for the context what I'm talking about. Plenty of previous Chicago stars have said like this place, this ain't it, man. And then No Cap women's basketball site gave a great point today. I might link it down below for their assessment of this trade. And they had like the classic secret ballot when they do the surveys at the end of the year last year. Essentially, one of the questions was, what's the worst franchise in the league? And to a man or to a woman in this case here, they all said Chicago. Without a doubt, Chicago. It's not even close. It's not even close, they said. This team, and this is the reason why the fallout started happening, because the interview that Reese had late in the season was, all she was saying was like, look, man, we got to be better. We got to really step up our game. We got to step it up from the standpoint of what we do on the court, the roster moves, and as well as the facilities. The facilities are not up to snuff for what we need to do. Essentially, the facilities are essentially by a YMCA, whereas like the public can just come in there and you can see Angel Reese or Camila Cardosa or whoever else you want. Now, this idea she's throwing players in the bus, I won't go through that again. It was obviously I would be kind to the journalist that said so, who was doing some misinformation on herself, on her own story, as she was referring to it as throwing the players on the bus. She didn't throw any player on the bus. She mentioned one player. And I think she purposely mentioned that player because it seems like there was some power struggle between that player and the rest of the team in this case, or at least with Reese. And that, in this case, with Vandersloot. And hey now, Jeff, man, Pagliacco or whatever his name is, my apologies to your family again. You got your wish, man. You got your franchise player Vandersloot, man. 36 years old, your point guard. Knock yourself out, man. That's your girl, man. Knock yourself out. It's interesting to see the fallout in Chicago and the fans not pleased, because if you saw at the end of the season, they were booing old Jeff almost out the building. He had to go through the back doors how they felt about him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the reaction is going to be at the start of the season. To give some more context of the impacts from Reese. Reese, in this case for the Sky, led the team in double-doubles. Obviously led the team in the league in rebounding. Led the team in scoring at almost 15 a game. Led the team in assists, which is 3.7 assists a game. That's what's going out the door. Never mind, she's one of the most popular players in the league and a legitimate bona fide star. And why? And if you didn't know, now you know. They showed the Instagram, for example. Instagram following for Chicago Sky versus Atlanta Dream. 18,000 new in just not enough 24 hours. 18,000 additions of followers for Instagram for the Atlanta Dream. 10,000 lost for the Chicago Sky. I suspect that will continue throughout the entire week and weeks ahead. Especially if this team comes out the gates looking as sour as they were last year. We will see. But man, oh man, it's a dark time if you're a Chicago fan, a Chicago Sky fan. Atlanta, though, who won 30 games last year, oh, they for real now. If they came on strong. They for the most part they play well with Alicia Gray, and that bunch. I'm not sure Griner's a free agent. That'll be interesting if they sign her back. But because I'm not sure. I still kind of like Reese at the power forward position. She could play center if she had to, but I think if you want to preserve her best, I think she's best at the power, at the four. So we'll see. But that team, that team's gonna be no joke in the East. It could be them in the Fever, ironically, as the two leading contenders in the East, as New York will be in the mix, but you gotta wonder if New York's age is catching up to them now. So we'll see. Maybe the T-Dot's got something to say about it, depending on who they add to their roster. We'll get to that more as the season goes on with the tempo. But that's it for me, guys. It was a roundhouse, a potpourri. Take whatever you want, man. A smorgasbord of topics today. I just thought I had to kind of just give my takes on all of them. Anyways, guys, hope you had a great Easter for anyone who celebrates it. Once again, thanks for joining. Thanks for the support. You know where to find me as always. You can find me on X, Facebook, Instagram, and of course Blue Sky. You can find me right here on YouTube, where you can like, comment, share, and subscribe. As I always say, it's for free. It doesn't cost you a thing, guys. But once again, thanks again for the support. You all be safe out there, and we'll talk next time. Peace.